When I was 19 years old, my mum died from cancer. Not only did it have an effect on my family, but it also had an effect on my mental health as well. For the last 5 years of my life, I've battled with health anxiety. Health anxiety is when you always worry about your health and check your body for signs of an illness. Mentally, it's so draining. It hasn't been an easy ride for me at all, but I'm a lot better now than I used to be. Some men don't like to open up about how they're feeling, as they don't want to be seen as weak and vulnerable. Statistics have shown that 28% of men don't often seek help for their mental health. It's worrying, but it doesn't surprise me. As a man of colour myself, I've decided to put my own twist on this and speak to other men of colour about their own experiences. Due to mental health stigmas within the POC community, most of us are less likely to talk about our struggles and often brush off our issues as if they're nothing. And I think it's time to change this. You know, I keep wondering, like, why did I decide to make a project like this? I mean, I don't want to say it's exposing me, but it kind of puts me in a vulnerable place, and, you know, where I have to kind of now open up about my mental health and, you know, just open up in general. And it's hard, man. It's actually hard, but if this project can make any other man of colour feel like they're comfortable enough to open up about their mental health, then it's worth it, man. It's really, really worth it.
And at that moment, something big and unexpected did happen. I started to cry.
Growing up in a Nigerian household, the topic of mental health was hardly spoken about. And whenever it was always in a negative light.
You know, one very muggy Miami afternoon, my parents decided to surprise my brother and me with an early Christmas gift. An exorcism. Yeah, seriously, they flew in.
Things like exorcisms still happen in a lot of African households, as some believe mental health illnesses are caused by a demonic spirit or some sort of generational curse put onto the family.
Exorcism was primarily intended for my brother who has schizophrenia, because my very loving but very superstitious Nigerian parents believe that mental illness isn't just a disease, it is also a demonic curse. So once it's removed, my brother would be cured and perfectly normal.
Mom, I'm not gonna lie to you, like, really and truly, this mental health of mine is really kicking in, and I think it's because of uni, you know. I feel like if I continue going, I'm just gonna get depression or something.
No, I reject that for you in Jesus' name. Or call me. The devil is a liar, eh?
I'm on my way to meet Paul, a Jamaican-born British man who grew up in London. Having battled with PTSD and anxiety for most of his life, Paul is now an advocate for all things mental health related and dedicates his life to raising awareness for men's mental health as well. I got in contact with Paul via social media, and he was more than happy to take part and have a chat with me.
My full name is Paul Anthony Sewell Jr. I was born in Jamaica. I came over to London when I was 7, 8 years old. And yeah, I've been here ever since. I'd say my childhood was very turbulent. So when I came to London, like I said, when I was 7, 8, I was living with my stepmom, my mum, my stepdad, and my sister. And it was a lot different. Where I was coming from, Jamaica, which was like a massive family environment. I had my uncles, my biological father, my grandma, aunties, and so forth. So it's like a massive family. So going from that to like having in a completely different environment, being London, it was really turbulent. And unfortunately, my stepdad was abusive. It was definitely mostly verbal, and I think that's the verbal side of it is what stuck to me for adulthood. Saying things like you're worthless or like you can't do nothing right or stuff like that. That's what kind of stuck with me, and that's where I had a lot of the depression that I had and all the other mental anxieties, XYZ, and just the general feeling of not being of use or of any importance. That's where that kind of stems. So I say it was mostly the verbal abuse that actually impacted me mentally. I didn't like being in my house personally, so when I was outside the house doing sports or just hanging out with my friends or what have you, that's when I would say I found most of my happiness, and that was my escape from my reality sort of thing. What really helped me in terms of like my mental and having a form of expression, so I used to dance. Like dance was like, and music was my main form of escapism when I was actually in the house. And I'd have the Usher Confessions album, like that one got rinsed. So that was like my joy within like the toxic environment that I was in. Just some way of speaking about something. Obviously it wasn't verbally speaking, but it's body language, which is mainly how I communicate, I would say. I would have definitely probably committed suicide when I was little, just remembering my mental state at the time. I think I've always had a lot of, not to say issues, but I've always faced difficulty with my mental health, but I was completely ignorant to it. I would say even things like anxiety, I had no idea what anxiety was. The first time I found out and understood what anxiety was when I was 19 at university, where I was actually studying it and they described the feelings of anxiety. So up to that point I was like, wait, so I've been feeling anxiety for pretty much my whole life and I had no idea what this feeling was. So I would say in the typical, from my experience, the typical Jamaican family, typical Jamaican household, mental health is something that is completely non-existent. Like it's not something that's ever discussed. My two closest friends, they're both Jamaican as well, and in their household, I've never heard it discussed at all. It's something that's literally like if I didn't go to university in XYZ, I wouldn't know about mental health. I would have no idea. As long as you're physically okay, then that's it. And I spoke to my mum about this literally last week, because I said to her, it's like, you only check to see if I'm physically okay. Like, what about my mental health? Like, how am I doing? How am I feeling? I said, I'm depressed. You're depressed? No, sir. Mm-mm. Literally, like, stuff like that, just, they don't believe in. It's almost like they can't actually grasp the actual concept, even though often they themselves are suffering from these same mental health issues. It's like there's a block. They don't, because if they admit that you have it, then they have to admit for themselves that, like, I have it as well. When I was 17, my biological father passed. So obviously being a 17-year-old young man, I'm just going into adulthood. There were just so many questions that I had about myself in terms of my identity and who I was as a man. I didn't want to be like my stepdad, so I didn't have any guidance in terms of like what to do, how to react. So I feel like that's when I think my dad passing like really hit me, and that's when I kind of understood the significance of not having my father around. Obviously, where I'm pursuing my career in acting, I kind of want to show that to people, whoever's going through XYZ, that look, like, it's horrible, it shouldn't be happening, but it is happening, but there's something positive that can come from it. It hasn't always got to be negative. There is always, like I say, there's always a silver lining. So I literally want to be the silver lining and just like share with them my experiences. Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to the most, I'd say.
This was the first interview that I've actually had for this project. I feel like we vibed quite well. You know, we have a few things in common in terms of things that, you know, we've been through in our lives. It was so interesting to just get an insight into who Paul is and try and understand what he's been through and how he's trying to overcome it. And, you know, by opening up, by talking about his feelings, by getting rid of that stigma, that stereotype, you know, upon men. This is just the start of his journey towards finding himself and overcoming all of his issues and traumas in life. And even if he doesn't overcome all of them, you know, at least he's trying to work on himself and just trying to be a better version of himself, you know. And that's something that I really find inspiring.
On August 25th, I was found on the floor, 30 minutes away from dying from overdosing on over 100 prescription painkillers from trying to kill myself.
Before this experience, I didn't know anything about the mental health stigma within the Chinese community. I've learned that in China, the desire to seek treatment for your mental health is often made difficult for someone because of strict social norms, stigmas, and cultural beliefs regarding personal reputation.
The Asian cultural mentality I was raised in was one in which mental health did not exist.
I'm on my way to meet Scott, a Chinese international student who studies at University College London. During his teenage years, Scott struggled with depression and anxiety, which he believes stemmed from the loss of his grandfather, who he was so close to. After posting details about my project on a WhatsApp group for the UCL Mental Health Society, Scott immediately reached out to me and wanted to be involved.
My name is Changhao Huang, Scott Huang, and I am from China, from Shanghai. And in my childhood, because my parents, they are starting up a company, so in my childhood, I don't have much memory about them. I was raised by my grandparents. Sometimes, especially when my mother began to devote herself into charity industry, and she was not at home for like half of year every year. And then sometimes people may ask me about whether I feel like she is absent. And at that time, I may feel a little bit abnormal. And I don't feel I am blaming her, but sometimes I will think maybe she should spend more time with us. The first time I felt depressed and anxious was at the beginning of 2019. At that time, my grandfather just passed away. I lie on the bed all day long, do not want to do anything. I lost the power to get up, and anything seems boring to me. I don't have the motivation to do anything. Yes, I think there is a stigma in Chinese community. When I find that I may be in depression, I just told my father and mother, but my mother denied that I have depression, and also she told her friends as a joke about my situation. I think my relationship with my brother was a little bit strange. The computer games and play sports together, but we never talk to each other deeply. For example, when I was in depressed and anxiety, I never discussed them with him. And also, I think he may also have some problem that he is always isolated from others. I think that may be his defense, but I never ask him for help, and I do not provide my assistance to him. Maybe it is because of the stigma in Chinese culture. People usually do not talk about their mental situation with their family. In my generation, our parents will ask us to act like men. For example, when we are little, I may have some argument with my brother, and then if someone is crying, they may say, as a man, you should not cry. And I remember in junior high school, once I was crying and others laughed at me. And since then, I just cannot cry anymore. As long as people have the courage to make the decision and to face all the pain, they can always overcome their problems.
The interview with Scott was amazing. Like, it was so interesting kind of hearing it from his perspective and hearing how the mental health stigma is in, the Chinese community. This was definitely such a good thing for him to do. The day isn't over yet. I've arranged to meet up with Angel, an international student from Hong Kong. Angel was the events officer of the Mental Health Society at University College London and will be leading the society this academic year. As well as that, she established and has been leading multiple campaigns and organisations to destigmatise mental health in the youth. She also volunteers with various charities to directly support other people's mental health.
Culturally, mental illness is not a thing that we'll even mention. In Hong Kong, in our culture, anyone who has mental illness, he's just invisible.
I contacted Angel over social media and told her about my project. We then agreed to meet in person for a chat. So when and why did you become an advocate for mental health?
So basically from my home city in Hong Kong, I've recognized like a lot of people actually suffer from emotional distress or even mental illnesses. But the thing is they don't really know how to deal with that, or they may not know where the professional help is. And there's still this stigma because of different cultural impacts, because like it's rather collectivistic, no matter it's in Hong Kong or in China. Apart from supporting individuals, I can perhaps do more to advocate for mental health and to promote the knowledge about this. And so I've been trying to create this mental health campaign. I've run it for 3 years or so. And then what we do is that we post different contents on social media just to raise awareness. So the ones that I've been running, it's one of them is called Reminder. It's based in Hong Kong, but it provides bilingual information. And then the other one, I found it in UCL. It's called Cultured Minds, and it's a student-led volunteering project under UCL.
How do the older generation's views on mental health influence the younger generation?
So it's really about being open-minded and accepting how the previous views may not be too valid, and then we can take in new views, new perspectives that actually help us learn more about mental health.
I'm making my way to Lewisham, Deptford to be more specific, to meet my friend Emmanuel. Emmanuel is a young actor and has just finished his masters at drama school. He has taken on roles in a bunch of student and indie films.
Don't fucking touch her! I would fire your ass if I could, because honestly, I need so much help, but if I could...
Standard, man. Shut up, man. You're just as bad as Levi. If Levi didn't try anything, you would have, man, with your dry hands all over her.
And was the face of a documentary that I made earlier this year.
Group of 3 and we're doing a scene for Lady Macbeth.
Although Emmanuel is an actor, he has anxiety. I want to find out how he copes as a black man and still manages to follow his ambition amongst his personal struggles. What was that play you went to see recently?
It's a very long title, but yeah, it's called For Those Black Boys Who Consider Committing Suicide When the Hue Gets Too Heavy. And it affected me deeply, me and the people from my youth who I watched it with, because we started talking about it quite a lot after. It's like, what's the message from this whole performance? And we thought it was like, you just need to talk about your feelings or about how you're feeling. Yeah, you'll talk about your feelings. But it's like, what's next? There's still no solution. You just expose yourself, and now you feel vulnerable because you've told people how you feel. If you've told someone like how you feel or like what's deep inside you, you can't take that back. I want to say sometime before lockdown is when I realized that I am very anxious a bit, but I would always deny it. But you know, I've had it for since I was young. I guess I've always been shy, never really talked and stuff. It's just now I know the words to say it. When you're an actor, there's like a mask that you're wearing, so you're kind of protected, like you're not really yourself. So that's sort of how I deal with the anxiety and stuff, being on stage or being filmed and stuff. I just think that it's not me, so I'm not really exposing myself, because my name it wouldn't be Emmanuel when I'm acting. It would be someone else, unless the character's called Emmanuel by some coincidence. So yeah, that's kind of how I deal with it. So do I think this chat will help me, I guess, be open in the future? Is that your question? No. And the reason I say that is because I said earlier that it feels like, well, sharing my feelings or how I feel inside feels like I'm giving a weapon to someone, making me feel that I'm exposed. And to feel safe again, I'm just gonna go throughout the whole day making jokes because I've just exposed myself. I've just told people that I felt anxious and I probably had it my whole life. And it's not like people can't see that, but the fact that I said it confirms it.
One thing that really caught me off guard was Emmanuel's answer when I asked him if he feels comfortable enough to open up and talk about his issues now. He immediately said no. Some men genuinely cope in other ways to deal with their emotions, but talking about your emotions and how you're feeling is definitely the best thing to do.
I think the biggest difference, I think men in general sometimes have difficulty getting help, asking for help. I think with our South Asian men, it's definitely ingrained in many ways to not necessarily get help, but deal with a problem in different ways.
Mental health, even though mental health in general has only become quite a big spoken about topic in regards to the Western world in the past few years, I'd say, South Asian community, it's still not really talking about.
I'm going to have a chat with Sadat Khan, a Pakistani-born British man who grew up in Surrey. Sadat has battled with anxiety and depression for many years now. I want to talk to him about his experience and how it shaped his worldview.
My name is Sadat Khan. I'm from Red Hill, Surrey, but originally my background is Pakistani. Life growing up as a kid in a Pakistani household, you had to balance the traditional culture of Pakistan, which is the language and then the culture. And then as soon as you step out of the house, you've got the Western world, because obviously we're now living in England. So it was always difficult trying to balance the two. The Western culture is a bit more liberal, it's a bit more free. My first experiences of anxiety and depression, I would say it would have to go back to probably year 9, 10, 11. Not knowing obviously what it was back then. I always just felt like every time I wake up in the day, I just felt like absolute crap. I wasn't the most smartest kid in school as well, so the pressure of that, and then you got the pressures of the family expecting you to be this genius child. And then what happens is you start to doubt yourself, doubts come in, the pressure, and then also the anxiety slowly comes in, like a little voice starts coming into your head, and you start doubting yourself over little things like just getting out of bed. You start going, do you know what is the point of me getting out of bed? What is the point? And that just consumes you like a wildfire, really. These voices are telling me stuff that is not true, and I need to talk to someone about it and just let them know that these voices are taking over slowly and I need some help. So I went to go see my GP, who referred me to a therapist for, I think it was on the NHS for like 6 weeks or something like that. So basically what the therapist helped me to realize was that some of the stuff that is the voices in my head are self-proclaimed, and I need to accept the fact that these voices are going to be in my head. They're going to be all around, all over my life. And sometimes what helps is what she said is to listen to them and just talk back to them and just say, okay, now what? So you're going to tell me I'm going to have a shit day? Now what? I'll have a better one tomorrow. It's like the positive and the negatives, you just have to listen to them both. I've felt ashamed for the longest period. I definitely feel like majority of my life I felt ashamed, until I realized that is nothing to be shameful of, because everyone experiences it. But yeah, no, because as men, we're not supposed to have, well, we're supposed to be the protector, the provider, and the security that everyone needs. But with mental health, you feel like you're not that. And if you tell that to someone, then they might look at you different. I think slowly we need to start talking about it. All it takes is one person to go, do you know what, I'm actually having a shit day. I'm not having a great day. My mental health is not great. And what happens is now the person who you are telling that to then goes, do you know what? If that person could tell me about how they're feeling and show the vulnerable side that they have, maybe I can do the same. And that's how it starts. The worst thing we could do as humans is just not let anyone know.
I really enjoyed talking to Sadat and hearing his story. The fact that he decided to go down the route of therapy shows how strong he is, and I really admire that. All these different men who have never met each other and come from different backgrounds and communities have all got something in common. After speaking with Paul, Scott, Emmanuel, and Sadat, clearly their roots are very different. But how all these different cultures treat mental health is shockingly similar. Each of these cultures have minimized the importance of mental health and disregard how vital it is for people, especially men, to open up and talk about their issues. I believe a specific campaign for men's mental health should be created. One that will equally benefit all men of colour from different communities.